In this video, I'm going to show you the differences between the Noah in the Bible and the Noah from the Quran. First of all, I want to note that both these versions are unique and interesting in their own rights. If you're interested for a video that favors one over the other, you're in the wrong place. But if you're interested in learning about really cool and interesting stories, about really cool interesting people, stick around and find out. To be clear, these stories are more similar than they are different though. The two stories are largely the same. Both stories center around an enormous flood to wipe out either a specialized area or the whole world because God is angry, albeit for different reasons in each story. In both stories, God gives favor to Noah and warns him about the upcoming disaster. And in both stories, he does this because Noah is a righteous man. Yet where these stories differ, there's actually quite a bit to be said. First of all, the two Noahs had completely different jobs from the Bible to the Quran. The biblical Noah was a silent worker. In many sermons growing up, I heard preachers often cite Noah's example in the Bible as an example of hard work, great faith, and resilience. This is because in Genesis 6:14 through 21, God gives an unbelievably complex explanation of the ark specifications that would take him a long time to finish. The very next verse just says, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. The Quranic telling of Noah is mainly as a warner, however. In every passage Noah is mentioned in the Quran, Noah is constantly warning people about the impending punishment they were all destined for if they don't follow God and obey him, as well as blessings they might partake in if they do repent and obey God. For example, truly, we sent Noah to his people, warn thy people before a painful punishment comes upon them. Another fascinating difference between the stories is that the Quranic Noah is repeatedly mocked for what he is doing, whereas the biblical Noah is not. Surah 11, Ayah 38 says, And whenever notables among his people passed by him, they would scoff at him. After the flood, the ark rested on Mount Ararat in the Bible, but in the Quran, the ark rested on Mount Judi. Both sides, small percentage of both sides, has argued on YouTube that it is an objective fact that the ark landed on Judi or Ararat, depending on whether or not the arguer is Muslim or Christian. But scientific data fails to support this theory, in my opinion. God was very sad about the necessity of the flood because of the sheer evil of man in the Bible. In fact, he had several lamentations about this fact, although it's still seen as a good thing at the end of the day. However, in the Quran, God seems to have no lamentations about the flood at all, but again, it's still seen as a good thing. All of Noah's family was saved in the biblical account, but in the Quran, one of Noah's sons said that he could just go on top of a mountain if things got bad. His son refused to repent until the water came over him, and he died. "O my son, embark with us, and be not with the disbelievers," he said. "I shall take refuge on the mountain. It will protect me from the water," he said. There is no protector on this day from the command of God. An interesting anecdote I took away from the Quranic telling was that Noah begs for God to save his son, remarking to the previously held words of God saying that his family is to be carried on board in Ayah 40. However, God strongly iterates that his son is indeed not from his family, the family of the righteous. This brings us directly to the next point of contrast between the Bible and the Quran. In the Quranic telling, Noah seems to have gained followers, and these followers were saved from the flood. This insinuates that these followers were indeed righteous. We see you as not but a human being like us, and we see none who follow you, save the lowliest among us, as is clear to see. Noah's followers were never mentioned in the biblical story. As noted, the reason for the flood differs as well. In the Bible, God indicates that the reason is because he regrets making mankind because all they think about is evil all the time. The reason for the flood in the Quran, however, is because people are simply idolaters. One big striking difference between the two narratives is that the biblical narrative is more detail-oriented in general, listing a somewhat precise size of the boat, talking about clean and unclean animals, step-by-step narrative order of the whole story from beginning to end, Noah's age, the lengths of time it took to make it, and how long the flood lasts, list of who was to go on the boat, names of Noah's ancestors, and many other little snippets of facts. Whereas due to the oral nature of the Quran narrative is far less detail-oriented. There is one controversial difference between these two stories. In the Bible, after the flood, Noah learned how to make alcohol. One day, he got drunk and was lying naked. In the Bible, drinking is not a sin, but getting drunk is. In the Islamic religion, Muslims believe all alcohol to be sinful. After Ham, Noah's offspring, found Noah lying there, he did nothing to stop Noah from embarrassment other than telling his brothers Shem and Japheth. After hearing about this, Noah cursed Ham for his inaction and told him that his offspring would be the slaves of Shem and Japheth. Noah is not seen in a good light in this passage, but he is seen in maybe a realistic light. Islamic prophets were often never talked about in a negative manner. In fact, this is a repeated difference you will continue to see if you follow along in this series, where we'll dive into the differences between Islamic prophets and biblical ones. Subscribe so you don't miss them. Thanks, bye.